Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/PettyRevenge. In today's episode, SIL insulted my kids so I exposed her lies. My homeless dad used me in his money scheme, so I took it all. Rude customer. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. SIL insulted my kids so I exposed her lies. SIL is the kind of mom that always has to one-up other kids. She constantly talks about how her kids are smarter, taller, faster, etc. than her friends' kids. She literally bragged about them peeing more than her friends' kids when they were babies, lol. It was worse when my husband and I had our twins. Suddenly everything was a competition that her kids always won. One of my girls rolled over at 4 months, her son had rolled over when he was just a week old. The twins both took their first steps around 13 months, her daughter was running at 4 months. She didn't actually start walking until around 16 months. She even changed the weight of her kids' birth weights, which makes them both heavier than the current heaviest newborn in America. It's so weird that she feels the need to tell such obvious lies, especially to people who know she's lying because they were there when her kids were small. I got annoyed when she went from lying about her own kids to telling me there is something wrong with mine. The girls are a few months shy of 2 and they're both healthy, on track and hitting their milestones. SIL has become obsessed with the idea that there is something wrong with them because they're not speaking in long sentences. Of course they're not even 2. They're both developmentally on track, but she insists that her children were speaking in 5 to 6 word phrases by 18 months. Spoiler, they were not. Honestly, her son is almost 7 and I can still barely understand a word the kid says. My husband and I ignored her, but she took it too far when I got a call from her friend who works in early intervention who was under the impression I was very concerned about my children. We talked and her friend confirmed that yes, they are on track and no, there's nothing to worry about. I finally lost my patience. Hey, her kids are breaking almost every record there is, and that should be celebrated. We had dinner with my husband's family on Saturday, kids were in another room, and I decided it was the perfect time to give her my gift, a booklet I had printed and laminated called the White Claw Book of World Records. I printed all the supposed milestones of her kids, complete with photos and info of the actual world record holders now that they had been pushed to second place. She flipped through the first couple of pages, went beet red and called me an asshole. Her husband took it from her and got through the first page before laughing hysterically and asking her why the hell she was still lying. Apparently, it was not the first time they'd talked about her lying about their kids. She stormed out but texted me later that night and asked why I'd humiliated her when all she'd ever tried to do was help me get my kids the help they needed, but if that was how I wanted to treat her then she'd stop. So I guess it's a win for me. I love how her husband asked her why she was still lying. Judging from this post, that man either must have the patience of a saint or gives no fucks. I prefer leaning towards the second one. I would have blasted her too about having a friend call OOP about her concerns. Tell her the only one who needs help is her. Perhaps you have a friend who works in late intervention who can give her a call to help her grow out of her middle school age of development. In all seriousness, this is some genuinely troubling behavior on the part of the SIL, and it sounds like it might be impacting her son's development. White Claw Book of World Records. You didn't care about her lies and probably wouldn't have done what you did if she didn't involve outside individuals in something you already knew was normal development that was verified by a professional. She really is an asshole and a pathological liar that needs to mind her own business. Love this. You should have stuffed an application to apply for the different records. OMG. This is epic. The fact her husband cracked up makes it even better. Can we be friends? Reminds me when my son was about 14 months and my SIL decided he was deaf. I told her to try to sneak up on him. Spoiler alert. He heard her every time. Or he's psychic. I guess it could be either. Ha ha. I have a friend that tells anyone that will listen that her kid is a genius. Her kid is not a genius. He's 6, I can barely understand a word he says, and to me he seems developmentally delayed, but I've never said that to her though cause I'm not an expert. He still uses diapers and refuses to use the toilet. I say uses diapers, because he doesn't wear one, he just asks for one when he needs to use the toilet, and she gives him one, he goes off puts in on himself, then squats wherever he happens to be and then asks her to help clean him up. He is also really weird. I know that's mean to say about a 6-year-old. He's a good kid. But definitely an oddball. I think she says he's a genius because she knows something is wrong, but is in denial and thinks if she says he's a genius then she doesn't need to acknowledge what is actually wrong with him. Now this is my first internal thought whenever any parents tries to tell me how advanced their child is, I automatically assume the kid is the exact opposite. When she talked about giving birth to the world's heaviest newborns, I would have been like, that must have really stretched things out down there. Yes, I know that isn't scientifically correct, but it's a pretty good burn. After she messaged you, I'd have messaged her back and said if I ever find out you've been talking about my kids behind my back about how they're delayed and something is wrong with them, that little book will like a bouquet of roses when I'm done with you. My homeless dad used me in his money scheme, so I took it all. Okay, so the homeless guy is technically my dad. My dad was only in my life actively from ages 0 to 7 and in that time gave me a shit ton of trauma. He was a hardcore alcoholic manipulator and a lot of other things I can't say. My mom being the baddest she has left him and for a short bit we did weekends at his place. It was a never-ending cycle of him drinking being a POS and then buying us over with animals and gifts. After getting several DUIs, unpaid child support and a few child endangerment cases he up and left to avoid going to jail. Like disappeared, left the animals locked in the house that he abandoned and shut off his phone. Every few months or so he would randomly show up at my school drunk and crying with gifts in hand or leave notes on our door. My school literally had to implement a safety plan because my mom was scared he would take me. That stopped and didn't hear from him for about 13 years. When I was 20 he messaged me on Facebook saying he would love to get to know me and asking if there's anything I need financially. My initial response, sick to my stomach and crying, quickly turned to anger. I was broke and really could use the money, and I mean he owed me, right? I told him I would meet and needed money for rent. When I saw him my stomach turned. He looked like the crazy guy you see on the side of the road begging for money. He really didn't make much sense, just talked a lot of shit about my mom saying she was a liar and turned us against him and mumbling nonsense. Apparently his brother, my uncle that I have never had a relationship with, would no longer give him money but would wire transfer him money for me. He told his brother I needed $1,500 and told me he would take $500 and give me $1,000. His crappy burner phone ran out of minutes, so one of the calls to his brother was made from my phone. Of course he didn't have an ID or anything, so I would need to pick it up with him. When someone wires you money, they get a code, then give you the code and voila, you get the money. My dad wouldn't give me the code until we were physically at the place to pick it up, which we planned to do the following morning. The next morning, I decided to text my uncle since I now had his number and ask him directly for the code. I got the code, picked up the money and blocked my POS dad. He made sure to leave me some deranged voicemails about how big of a POS I am. He pretty much used me to get money from his brother. If he really wanted to be in my life, he would have taken the proper steps to do so and change, but he never did. Not denying what I did wasn't shitty, but also *CK my dad. Edit, my uncle does well financially and obviously was fine with sending me money. Which at the time I definitely needed. I saw a few comments saying I helped scam my uncle, which I just don't get. He thought he was sending money to go to me and help me out, the money went to me and helped me out. And of course I thanked him. Edit, side note, since people are asking. The animals were rescued as soon as we realized he was gone. Poor babies suffered a lot from him and were also alone for days, but were alive. Don't worry about it. Your uncle would only send money for you. You just honored his wishes in taking the money. There's no doubt it's better in your hands than your dad's. Agreed. Uncle never intended for your dad to get the money, and your dad only reached out to you so he could manipulate the situation for a buck. What you did wasn't shitty, it was very smart. Your dad bailed on his family. There's no amount of money that can make up for that. My advice would be to just find it in you to understand that your dad is a turd human and you will be best off to cut contact. Walk away from the table while he just witnessed your true feelings about him. Also, establish a relationship with the uncle who has money. He sounds like someone who actually cares about your well-being. If he truly is a good guy, then listen very carefully to his advice. I love the people here because I've told this story in another subreddit and was told I was literal scum. You guys are my people, lol. I ain't mad at ya. Good for you. For standing up for yourself. I definitely wish I had said somethings, but it wouldn't have done any good. I'll hit him where it hurts instead. Better call your uncle and warn him too. I'm glad you got the money. But do beware, if your bio father knows where you work or live, he may keep harassing you for the money. Just keep a lookout, don't have to be paranoid, he won't be able to do any clever schemes on you. Please at least get to know this uncle some. It sounds like he supports your life, and I'm sure he'd be happy to get to know you. Let it be awkward, let it be sad. Bring a friend with you trust even. This man is willfully giving you money and has no obligation to. Granted, he could be a creep, but I feel like he would be pretty cool to know. Also, if he doesn't expect you to pay him back, try make dinner for him. Doesn't need to be too fancy, but I would recommend a much from scratch as your culinary skill can manage. You would be surprised how much taking the time to prepare a meal can go for showing gratitude. I hope your uncle is a decent dude, and you know what, even if he's not, get that bag. You live in a shit situation with a shit dude as a father. Get out with a little leg up if you can. Honestly, he was very absent my entire life, so I know very little about him besides the fact he does okay money-wise. Are your grandparents still around? Because I have a funny feel about who might be next. No, they aren't, but they were also POS humans. Rude customer. A little info, I work at a movie theater and today I was doing box selling tickets. The popular movie right now is Sound of Freedom and it was sold out. I had two customers, a middle-aged man, who stood angry the whole time, and woman. Already with a snotty attitude, the woman approaches to buy the tickets and finds out we're sold out. I ask them if they want to buy tickets for tomorrow because we're not yet full. She accepts, but with more attitude. The man stares me down. So I ask them to pick out their seats, they pause, think, then say they don't care and tell me to pick them, with lots of attitude like it's my fault that the movie is sold out tonight. Now there was plenty of good seats left, but since they had attitudes and were treating me like shit, I said sure. I picked the seats closest to the screen knowing that the movie would sell out and they couldn't switch them. This is my microscopic petty revenge. You missed a golden opportunity to give them seats that were not together. No, miserable people like that are far worse off together. I worked in a live theater's box office that showed Broadway musicals. Whenever we had jerky customers, we would put them in the front and make them think how lucky they were. Wait, why is it not good to be near the front for a live musical? How is Sound of Freedom the popular movie right now? There's a QR code at the end of the movie telling the queue people who watch it to buy more tickets, the implication being those tickets will go to other people who want to see it. There's no system to transfer said tickets, so the movie just shows as sold out. Queue people show up to watch, see that the sold out show is only half full, and think there's a liberal conspiracy to keep them from seeing it. That's probably why they were so rude to OPSI. When I was 17, early 1970s, I got a summer job working at a movie theater. It was a pretty good gig. I was able to let family and friends into the theater for free. One of the problems we had were teenagers letting all their friends in through the exit doors. My manager told me to keep an eye out for that. The exit door only opens from the inside. So one person would buy a ticket, then walk down to the exit door, open it and let all his buddies in. One time I entered the theater and see a kid holding the exit door open and leaning out and calling for his buddies to come in. I sneak up behind him, shove him out the door and close it. Back then you bought a ticket, then it was torn in half when you entered, no going out and coming back in. He just lost the cost of his ticket. Hey, OP, was Freedom genuinely sold out, with no empty seats in the theater? Or was it ghost tickets? Still recommend Spotlight, Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, The Keepers, The Magdalene Sisters, and Song for a Raggy Boy over this one. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.